My name's Terry Spitzmiller. For those that don't know me, I'm a retired Air Force colonel and also a retired senior executive service for the civilian world. When I thought about going to the military, I never thought of going in the Air Force. But I met my wife in 1976. And after I met my wife in 76, I then found out that her brother-in-law was an Air Force recruiter, and also that his father was a colonel, a commander of a guard unit in St. Louis. I ended up joining ROTC, and after ROTC, I went in, and my original plan was had a law enforcement degree, was to go into the Air Force for 4 years, get out, and go to the FBI Academy. Of course, they never let me go into law enforcement or security police in the Air Force. They put me in the administrative career field and was able to do some unique things. I came in what they called the Admin Officer Overreach Program. They hired another 1,000 admin officers so that the pilots wouldn't have to do any additional duties. Unfortunately, where they found out is we did all the additional duties, so we had everything that we could put in our OPRs, our performance reports, and the pilots basically had nothing to put in other than their flying duties. Spent my first tour actually in Elmendorf Air Force Base. It was actually the base that I was born at when my dad was in the Army for 2 years, and I was there for 5 months. Lived St. Louis all my life. My career encompassed a lot of different things. I spent 2 years with the Army as a deck commander at Aberdeen Proving Grounds in Maryland, which was very unusual. I was the only Air Force officer on the Army post, and I had to report to the Army General Staff, and I also reported to the Air Force staff back at Chanute Air Force Base in Illinois. The things that I've been able to do, I always call them, I have war stories, but they're not war stories. They're unwar stories. And the reason being, as I said in my writing, I had a curse, and one thing I regret is I never got to go to a war zone. I never got deployed. And part of that reason is I had 3 major medical issues that affected me, that if I would have probably been in the Army or the Marines or maybe even the Navy, I would have been medically boarded out. But since I could still do my job that I was able to stay in the Air Force for the 27 years. So in a way it was a curse because I didn't get to do what I wanted to do and support, but in a way it was also God's blessing to me because I was able to stay at home in the States. Not that it means that I didn't have a lot of work to do or have a lot of crazy things to do. Most of my tour was in operational contracting, which means a base support. And as I migrated through the years, eventually went back to Alaska and Eielson Air Force Base. And there I had a few things that were really unique that actually boosted my career throughout the time. First one is saving a housing project, $128 million housing project, private sector development, from the, as I call it, the bowels of bankruptcy. I arrived and they said, "Here, Terry, I just got the modification done. You should be good to go. The project's on the way." Within 6 months, the project went into bankruptcy because the developer didn't have a penny, and had to work through with our lawyer, and we worked through the process, and eventually we got the houses built, 366 homes, but it took us 3 years to do that. When I arrived, the project should have been done. It had been delayed since 1991. We got it done at the mid part of 1996. And that way we could be able to keep, it was a major #1 project in the state of Alaska to keep the base open and forward to make sure, because housing was very critical up near Fairbanks, Alaska. The other thing that I always enjoy, and it was called Saving the Boondocks Bar and Grill. It was a Friday night. I got a call from my logistics commander, who is the one that I reported to. And he says, "Terry, I need to see you really quickly." So I ran down the hall and saw him. He says, "Terry, we have a problem. There's a private bar and grill right off the base, and the floodwaters are going to take them out within the next 24 to 48 hours. He said, and engineering says we can't do anything because it's not considered a state emergency. It's not considered a federal emergency. He says, can you think of anything that you can do? And I said, give me 5 minutes, sir, and I'll be back. And so I ran down the hall and I called that housing project program manager that was there. And I said, hey, remember those 54 foundations I had you rip up, the concrete? I said, have you still got that concrete? He says, yeah, we're going to haul it out tomorrow morning, Saturday. He says, we got to haul it all the way to Fairbanks, which was about a 30-mile each way construction drive with the trucks. I said, I can't officially ask you to do this. And I say officially. I can't say that we are the government is involved. But since you're involved, could you take that concrete and dump it right next to the Boondocks Bar and Grill, which is right off the base by 1.5 miles? And would you put it right there on the edge? He goes, well, what do we want me to do that for? I said, well, the Boondocks Bar and Grill is going to get wiped out here by floodwaters within 24 hours or so. And he said, if it isn't there, if there isn't something to stop it, it's all going to erode away from the rising waters. And he said, yeah, we can do that. He said, it'll also save him money because he didn't have to move the gas and the trucks and move it down. And I said, that's great. So I called my boss, but before I called my boss, I called public affairs. And I told the guy he had to be out there at 8 o'clock in the morning. Not only the trucks rolling at 8 o'clock in the morning. And he goes, but they did ask, he said, well, how are you going to get this done? He said, if we just dump it there. And I said, the owner has a bulldozer someone's donated, and he'll push it right there into the banks. So next morning, public affairs comes out with me. I'm not in uniform and such. And they start dumping the concrete. The truck started, the bulldozer bulldozed the concrete into the riverbank to stop the floodwaters. The bar was saved, and we got, the wing commander got high praise from the state congressman and the governor and the federal senators. Even though we weren't officially involved, we were involved to be able to save something. And that was one of the things that I always think, later on when I would go there, I would get a free drink, because of the things we did. And then the other thing that I enjoyed doing was when we arrived at Eielson Air Force Base, it was the year that NFC football got taken over by Fox versus CBS. Now, not a big issue in most cases, except at Eielson Air Force Base. Because of that, the satellite that was pulling down, the Fox satellite, they couldn't get that to come. Now, means that they're only going to miss 2 games a week, but it became a major morale issue at the base. And this went on for about 1.5 years. And we were getting ready for a town hall meeting, and the wing commander sent me a message, says, Terry, is there anything we can do to get this done? He says, can you find out? So I went down and I got the cable contract, and I called the head of the cable company up there, and I said, hey, look. And he goes, Terry, I know. He says, I get calls every day about this stupid thing. I said, what does it take for us to have NFC football sitting here so that people will see it but within the next 30 days? He says, well, what we need is another satellite dish. And I said, okay, so how much does that cost? And he goes, $25,000. And I said, okay. I said, so if I could get the dish bought, would you install it and have everything in place within 30 days? He said, well, let me call and check. And he talked with his management, and they said, yeah, we can get that done. So what I did is that instead of the government buying it, I had the contractor buy it under contractor acquired property. We gave him the $25,000. In fact, I got on the phone and I called the wing commander and I said, sir, for $25,000, you and I can go in the dish business. And he goes, what? He said, that'll solve the problem. He says, I just gave the support group commander $125,000 to buy something. And he says, tell him you need $25,000 of that. So I called him, he called me, we got everything squared away, got the $25,000, edited the contract. They bought the dish. Within 30 days, the dish was out there. And the wing commander even told me, he says, Terry, you tell the cable guy, he says, if he does not get this resolved within 30 days, he says, I'm going to be at his house. And I said, no problem. And so within 30 days, the dish came in. Engineering helped install it because they had to put a concrete pad on the base. But within about, I think it was ended up being about 35 days, we actually were able to have NFC football. And we're able to solve the number one morale issue other than the housing that on that base. But that was Eielson. I was a squadron commander there for the contracting squadron. The unique things I think about that is there we won an Air Force Outstanding Unit Award. For those who are not in the Air Force, that's a top 10% unit, and that was our squadron. And also that was the second one I was able to lead in because at the Air Force that I was years before that, I was able to get my first one. So out of the 4 places I commanded in my career, 2 of them were awarded Air Force Outstanding Unit Award. Left Eielson, went to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, went to Ohio, first time in Ohio, and I ended up with four different jobs there. One being a program manager for a low observable program, which normally contracting people only do that as a side, which I did that as a side. Went to GE, was there during 9/11. Actually, my deputy and I were driving out to a engine test facility out in the mountains of Ohio, hills of Ohio. And all of a sudden, I'm out there, and all of a sudden I hear, Lieutenant Colonel Spitzmiller, please pick up the red phone outside. And it was like echoing over the valley. I'm like, what is this, God calling me or something? And I pick up the phone, and my guys are calling me, and they're saying, sir, the Pentagon's been hit. The towers have been hit. I know nothing about this. The towers have been hit, and they say the next place to be hit is the GE plant in Cincinnati. And I said, wait a minute. Time out here. Why do you think the GE plant is going to be hit? And they go, well, they said that other plane, they don't know where it's going. It's flying around Ohio, and GE is where they... I said, first of all, they don't make engines there anymore. I said, it's all administrative offices building. So you believe that of all these other targets, GE plant is going to be hit? Yes, sir, we need to send everybody home. I said, well, it sounds to me like we're at war for some reason. I said, so I will let the civilians go home, but I need to talk to the major that's there. And I said, get her on the phone. I said, okay, you two stay there until 7 o'clock at night. You come back the next morning at 7 o'clock. Tell Captain such and such and the other captain to be there. I said, when we get back and have them work the night shift. I said, because I don't know what's going to happen. And I was one of the first people that were on a plane right after 9/11 hit, a commercial aircraft, flying out to Tinker Air Force Base because we were involved with the airplane parts and engine parts. We didn't know we were going to have to ramp up production, what we were going to have to do, what was going to have to be get there. So, but we weren't there. We didn't know what was going on, and we got a call. But the funny part was my people were all panicking that the GE plant was going to be hit and they were going to get wiped out. And I said, let's use some common sense in this, folks. So those are the kinds of a few stories that I've had in my career. I call them unwar stories. There are many others, and I started my chapter outline of going to start writing a book where they're like short little things and short stories. And I got so far about 43 chapters, that I could put in there for just little things that happened over the career or the things that I have done. I retired from the Air Force in 2007 and went to work for Homeland Security in 2008 in Customs and Border Protection in Indianapolis. And people would always ask me, well, why Indianapolis? And I said, well, that's where the contracting office is stationed. And so I was working out of there in Washington, D.C., and then I was with them for about a little bit over 3 years. And then I went to work for the VA. Again, I was in procurement. And so I was first assigned as the head of all the hospitals and clinics, supporting all the hospitals and clinics in the state of Ohio. Eventually took over and got Indiana and Michigan added, and I had to assimilate those. That was a really tough challenge because they had two different leaders, and now I'm going to be the new leader of both units. And then after doing that for about 10 years, I got promoted to the senior executive service, moved down here to be the head of the regional office to support all the hospitals in the central region, which covered a span of 20 states, 1,100 people. And we spent about $7.5 billion a year just supporting all those hospitals and clinics within the central region. And we had mine and my two other parts. I retired from May, and that's about it about me. I could have a whole lot of different unwar stories, but I think I've given you enough.